handout. Cool. The title of this is Launching Your Career, and I like to start off in an optimistic tone. Here, let me know.
18 months.
I'm having recording issues. But how about this? Move it over here. So we know that most people that get started in real estate don't stay. Right. The National Association of Realtors once checked and found that 75% of the people who joined the union, as it were, in 18 months had stopped paying union dues. Right? They had dropped out of the Association of Realtors. Not everybody renews their real estate license. And when you factor that in, what's going on here is it early retirement, right? They made so much money the first year that they didn't have to work anymore. Is that what happened in 18 months, right? Or they didn't make enough money to make it worth even paying the dues to be in real estate and be a member of the union. The California Association of Realtors did a survey once, and they were looking at the distribution of commission as to how many agents earned how much commission and that sort of thing. And they found that 13% of the agents in California were earning 87% of the commissions. And although that sounds, good, I guess, the bad news is that 87% of the real estate agents were splitting 13% of the commissions, right? And you've heard of the 80-20 rule. It's really closer to 90-10. And I have software that we run that shows productions in every given market, and you can see that in MLS listings, which is a big MLS, last year there was a 12-month period where over 50% of the members did not close a real estate transaction for the whole year, over half. So why does this happen? Right? Why does this happen? I think a lot of people that get into real estate don't really know what they're getting into. For example, did anybody tell you that this was sales? Did anybody mention that when you were getting into real estate?
No, this was what did you just say?
It's sales. Being in sales. All right. What is the business that we're in? Are we in the real estate business? In a way, not really, because we don't buy and sell real estate. Right? And that's not what we do, right? We're selling services to people. And a lot of people, if I ask you the question, if you didn't sell real estate, what would you sell instead? Right? Have you thought about that? If you weren't selling real estate, what would you sell instead? Yes, and for a lot of people, the answer is I wouldn't sell instead. Monica, do you have a book for her? Anyhow, some people think it's easy. I don't know if you ever got that thought that it's easy. You go get your real estate license, you put it on the wall, people come by, they drop off money. Isn't that pretty much right? How it works, something like that. If I were to have one trait that would define your success, it's your willingness and ability to talk to people. There's two parts to the business. There's a technical part, and you're going to see through the launch training, we're going to talk about how to fill out the contract, right? We're going to talk about how to do the disclosures, how to read a prelim, right? And all that other really interesting stuff. But the truth is that if you became really, really good at all that, that doesn't mean you're ever going to make any money in the business, right? You understand? That's the technical side of the business. And 80% of your success, at least, is going to come from your willingness and your ability to talk to people, not from your technical understanding. If you can bring clients to us, we can help you close the transaction. Right? You understand? From our point of view, that's the easy part. Right? You get it. That, I guess what I'm saying is some people spend all their time learning how to do technical things rather than spending their time talking to people about real estate. It takes time to get paid. Right? You understand that even if you found somebody today that was interested and motivated, it could be a while before they found the home. It could be a while before escrow closes. It could be a while before that person comes. You have to have patience sometimes because the effect of our work sometimes appears much later. It's easy to get in and easy to get out of real estate. Isn't that true? Right? Pretty easy to get into it relative to most professions. How many of you know failed real estate agents? People that were in real estate but aren't in real estate anymore. Right? Most people, you just have to ask your friends. They don't always admit it. Right? But there are a lot of people that got into real estate that just get out. In fact, now that the market is changing, we're already seeing some people are getting out. Right? Because the market changes and they don't know what to do when the market changes. There are a lot of people that get in and out. The stages of mastery, this is from a guy named Maslow, and what he talked about is, and this is, I think, related to being successful at the business, is that you go through the stage of being, first, an unconscious incompetent. This is when you do not know what you do not know. Right? And many people, when they're new, when it comes to real estate transactions, do not even know what they do not even know about real estate. And then pretty soon you learn what you don't know. Right? Because people raise objections and you don't know the answers. Right? They ask you questions and you don't know. By pain, right, you figure out what you do not know. Right? And then the next level is when you become a conscious competent, and that's where you've learned how to answer the things you do not know. You've learned how to answer them, right? But you're kind of limited to just that. And the unconscious competent is when you get to the point where you don't have to think about it, but when somebody says something, it just comes out. Right? You understand? If you think about a kid at a certain age, they can't tie their shoes, right? They don't have an idea about tying shoes. Pretty soon they're trying to tie shoes but aren't any good at it. Then they're able to tie the shoe, but it doesn't look very pretty. And then hopefully we don't have to think about it, right? You understand? It just happens. So when you get to that stage in real estate, it gets a lot easier. Right? You understand? Where I'm going with this, it's harder at first. And going through the process of becoming conscious of the things you do not know is sometimes painful and uncomfortable. Right? The movement of this, my metaphor is like a railroad car that's sitting on a track. And the goal is to move the car down the track. Well, when the car is at a dead stop and you're pushing, it takes a lot of push to get to move. Right? You understand? The ratio to push to movement is really, really high. But once it starts moving, the ratio drops. It doesn't take as much push to create movement. Right? And as it goes faster, it's even less push to create movement. And then you reach a place where you can just sit on it and ride it because you have momentum. Right? Do you understand? There's real estate agents who retire in that they don't do anything to bring in new business and they just sit there and they wait and people call them and say, hey, I'd like to sell my house. Hey, I want to buy a house. That's all they do. They're just riding the momentum. Again, harder at the beginning. It's easier the longer and the more successful you've been. How to succeed? I would recommend to do everything. Right? And people say, what about door knocking? What about telemarketing? What about, why do everything? Right? I would prioritize, but there are times when I've met people who thought, I won't like knocking on doors, and they did. I don't think I'd be any good. They were. Right? And sometimes the other way around. There are ways of making money, however, that don't involve that, just in case. I believe that you ought to have a goal to write up something in the next 30 days. Right. I think that if that was in your mind, within the next 30 days, I'm going to get somebody to sign something. You understand? That's our mark for when you're being active, is when people are signing things. Right. One of the questions that is good to ask ourselves, I ask myself this question all the time, why am I in real estate? Right? Did you ever ask yourself that question? Right? Some of you that, if you haven't, you will at some point. Why am I in real estate? And where I'm going with this is that your goal to be big time. Some of our agents are in the top 100 of the C21 system. You want to be big time and have a team and be earning over $1 million a year. Do you want to just have a full-time but relatively normal job? A dual career means you've got other things going on in your life and this isn't a full-time commitment, but either you want to make the transition or you don't sometimes. The dual part is where they meet people who want to buy or sell real estate. And then there's hobbyists. Right? You understand? That's how over half the people in the MLS could not do a transaction in 12 months. It's a hobby, right? You know, you can, when somebody says, well, what do you do for a living? You can say, I'm in real estate, right? And then if something drops on in your lap, you know, then you go ahead and work with it. That's a large part of the business. Now, my assumption is that you want to be a big-time, wealthy, successful real estate agent, right? And that's my assumption, right? And so we're going to talk about it from that perspective. And you can divide by 2, right, if you want to, or 3, or depending on. So, if you wish to be really successful, it would probably help to have a goal, right, in your mind as to what success would look like to you. Now, there's a needs analysis, which is how much money do I need to make in order to make this not waste of time and to be able to survive. But that's not really an economic goal, right? You understand? That's just what I need. Where would you like to be? Why are you doing this, right? What is the purpose behind it? What if you had more money, what would you do? Would you travel? What difference would it make in your life? So let's assume that you would like to make a decent amount of money, right? I'm going to use that as an example as we go through. Is it more likely that we will reach a goal if we have a goal? Is that profound? You know? So if we don't even have any goals, other than I'm going to see if I like it and see how it goes, we may not be as focused as if we have a goal. So we'll go through goal setting and self-confidence. People that have goals generally feel better about themselves and are more self-confident because they can set milestones and track. You want to take all of them? Romeo? Yeah. Welcome. So if we have a goal, and we're tracking our path towards the goal, we'll have more self-confidence because we know we're doing the things we need to do in the time frame necessary to reach what we want. The plan, SMART, you may have heard of this, specific, something that is specific and simple. So, for example, I want to be successful in real estate is not specific. I want to make a lot of money in real estate, that's not specific. Right? I'd like to net $200,000 a year. How about that? Right? That's specific. Right? Measurable, well, I think that's measurable. As something that we can achieve that's realistic and within a time frame. And what I think I want to do is we're going to go down. Who's got a calculator? Somebody's calling me. I get a referral fee. All right. So what we're going to do is go through an example of how to set an income goal. You can write on this. So what we would do is to determine commission income, we would take what, first of all, let's start with the number, $200,000. I think, here, let me do this. I had made this interactive, but let's say our goal is $200,000. That's a nice goal. Now, the average sales price would vary depending upon what area we're in. Let's say we're in one of the low areas, and so that would be, how about $1 million? Now, I realize that in Alameda County it's closer to 8, and in San Francisco 1.5, and in San Mateo 1.3, in Santa Clara 1.2, but let's just say $1 million, right? That's a nice round number. And then what would the average commission be? I still think it's about 2.5%. And so average commission times, so that would be $25,000, right? So $25,000 would be the gross commission income. And then if we had, what's the answer there? I really need a better mouse. So how many transactions would we have to close to do $200,000 at $25,000 gross commission? We could deduct the splits before or after. Let's do it now. What's 25,000 times 0.70? Just for fun. 2.5% times 0.70. How about this? You guys are. So let's say our gross is $25,000, and we're going to multiply that by 0.7 just because the office gets something. So that's $17,500. Right. $17,500. And if we want to make 200,000, so 17,500 divided by 200,000 would mean that we would have to do 8.75 roughly, or how about 9 transactions? Is that right? If we did 9 transactions at $25,000 gross commission, we would end up with $200,000 after paying the office and the other people. Contracts pending, if 90% of the contracts close, then it means in order to close 9, we might need to open more than 9. All right, and why don't we just say 10? Because I think I can even do that right. So we're assuming that 90% of our transactions actually close. So if we do 10, we'll get 9. All right, and which means we'll make. So assuming that half of, let's say you, I'm just going to shorten this a little bit. I'm going to say that it takes 4 appointments, right? It does this in 2 steps. One of them is that if I meet with a buyer and they sign an agreement to work with me exclusively, what percentage of them actually buy, maybe half. And if I meet with candidates, how many of them are going to agree to the buyer broker arrangement, maybe half. I would rather just say that I need 4 appointments to get a client. How about that? Okay. Right. If we had 4 appointments necessary to get a client and close the client, what that's going to do is it says that I'm jumping down here because I can even do this math. That means we would need 40 appointments. Right? If we want to close 10 transactions, if we need to get into 10 escrows, and we need 4 appointments in order to get a client that goes into escrow, it means we need 40 appointments. Right? And if you're going to work 10 months, let's say, 10 months, right? Because you're a real estate agent and you don't want to work all the time, right? So you're going to work 10 months. Then if you had, that would be 4 appointments a month, and assuming that there are 4 weeks in a month, that would be 1 appointment a week. Right? I'm not going to do anything less than that, right? Even though I realize that it comes out to a fraction. So do you understand if you had 1 appointment a week, and you did that for 48 weeks, only took 1 month off, right? Just 1 month, right? And you did that for 48 weeks, and you converted 25% of those, that would be 12 transactions, right? Which would put us way over the mark to make $200,000, even assuming 70-30 for the whole ride and all of that stuff, right? Does that make sense? So my suggestion is, if you don't have a goal, and you'd like to have a goal, right? Isn't it always nice if somebody gives you a goal? How about this for a goal? Close 1 transaction a month. How about that? Is that an easy number to remember? Right? 1 a month. That's all we ask, is 1 a month. And that comes from 1 appointment a week. Now you might have to book more than 1 appointment a week to hold 1 appointment a week. What would happen if you were doing 2 appointments a week, or 3 appointments a week, or an appointment a day? Right? How about that? Now what would your numbers look like? Right? You'd be looking to buy a Maserati or something. The 90-day rule says that whatever whatever we're doing now probably will have an effect 90 days from now. This is one of the issues that sometimes people have in real estate is they succeed too quickly. Right? And I've had people that I've coached who got their license, knew a bunch of people, listed and sold 2 or 3 homes all in the first 90 days and never did anything ever again. Never did anything ever again because they burned through their sphere of influence. And since they were busy, they didn't think it was necessary to generate more leads. You understand, why should I generate leads? I'm busy right now. But then when the last one, remember the railroad car pushing you down, if you let the railroad car go back to a stop and have to start over again, you understand, most people only have a limited number of those that they're willing to go through in their business before they just leave, right? If you let it stop. Right? And so even if you're busy now, you ought to be lead generating for appointments. Because that's like breathing. You know, it's something you should do all the time, right? Rather than, you know, when you feel you need it. How many of you would say you're full-time? You're going to be full-time real estate agents. All right, pretty good, pretty good. So if you don't have business, would it seem logical that if you're going to be full-time, and that you would spend 80% of your time getting business? Does that seem like a logical thing? You don't have any business, you're full-time, 40 hours a week? That kind of full-time? All right, so let's say 40 hours a week, and you're going to spend 80% of your time on let's get some business. That would be about 32 hours. 80% of 40 is like 32 hours a week, and if you divide by 5, it comes out to a little more than 6 hours a day. 6 hours a day is what 80% of a 40-hour work. How about this? 20-hour work week. Doesn't that sound better? How many of you feel better already? Right? We're in real estate, right? If we wanted a 20-hour work week, that doesn't sound so bad. And 80% focus on getting business because we don't have any business. And then we divide by 5 and we end up with about 3 hours a day. You understand, 3 hours a day of business building, lead generation, networking, prospecting, whatever, appointment setting activities. 3 hours a day of that is an 80% focus on a 20-hour work week. An 80% focus on a 20-hour work week. I have a theory as to why many people fail in real estate. And my theory is they don't spend very much time talking to people about real estate. Right? I've had people say, I did everything you told me to do. And I'm like, no, you didn't, you know, because most people in real estate do not spend 3 hours a day in appointment setting activities. Most do not spend 3 hours a week in appointment setting. They don't spend 3 hours a month in appointment setting activities. I'm not kidding. Right? Am I kidding? There a lot of them aren't even spending that. If you spent 30 minutes a day, it would make me happy. Right? You have to see how I lower my standards. Right? We went from 6 hours to 3. You know, an hour, 30 minutes, just 30 minutes. Right? I had, you know, because what will happen is somebody that you talk to wants to buy or sell a house, and you're going to help them buy or sell a house, and you're going to get a commission check, and then you're going to start talking to a lot more people. All right? As soon as you make the connection between talking to people and getting the commission check, you'll probably talk to a lot more people. So what do? Well, we meet people. You know, that's the whole thing about the business. There was a guy that had interviewed. He was going to work with us, but he went elsewhere. PhD in patent law. Yeah. And had been an investor, and said he's told me he understood everything about real estate except one thing he did not understand, and it was this whole how do you get clients thing. That right. Everything else I got. Right. I just don't. I got nothing. Right. You understand? That's the whole thing. Right. That's the thing. And so we have to meet people. Real estate sales don't just happen. It depends upon what you do. Eliminating rejection. And then you repeat this, right? which means meet people and eliminate rejection, which means bringing them something of value, coming from contribution, repeating it, and then when you have a success, promoting it. Getting the selfie of you in the front yard with your clients, smiling. Yeah.
Can you give an example of eliminating rejection?
So, if I brought something with me that you might like, then it's not quite the same as me. So, for example, the holidays, it gets cold, right? So you can go knock on doors and ask people when do they plan on selling their home. But you also could organize a coat collection, let's say, for people that are homeless and that sort of thing during the winter, which would give you a reason to go talking to people where you're coming from something other than I'm a real estate agent, I got bills to pay, right? And that sort of thing. Bringing somebody a market update or what's going on in the neighborhood or something that might be of interest to them is what we call an item of value, right? It might be a holiday ornament, it might be, a flag, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that would qualify. Some more like garbage, but you understand what I'm saying. Bringing something that they'd find valuable. A market update. Do people want to know what's going on? The most effective marketing piece, geographic farming, is what's happened in the neighborhood recently. See, that's something people care about. And they want to know what's the square footage and the age and that sort of stuff. And if you bring them a report and give it to them, so you drop them a gift, that's a little bit better than just saying you want to sell your house. Yeah.
So when you say market updates, what do you do, like once a week, once a month, once every 2 weeks, or?
Well, the question is, how often do you communicate with the people in your target? Now, if you have an email list, I usually do an email market update or a market update that I would print out once a month. All right, and then I would go back 30 days, but if there's not enough sales in that area in the last 30 days to make it look any good, then I might, expand the area or go back a little bit further just so it all fits on the card.
Yeah, but you're saying a market update for a geographical area,
right?
So how can you get emails from those people? You don't know them, right? I mean, you're going to knock on their door, give them a flyer, say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to give you a market update of this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? Then you ask for their email address?
Well, so how about this? Facebook, as well as other venues, will allow you to run an ad based upon a very narrow geographic boundary, 1 mile radius. Yeah. So you pick a property that's in the middle of your geographic farm, and it'll go out 1 mile, which pretty much covers probably your geographic farm. And in the Facebook ad, and this requires spending a little bit of money to run an ad, you say that you have a market update report that you're willing, a market activity report that you're willing to email to anybody who would like it, and particularly if that neighborhood has a name. Like I used to farm an area in San Jose, but it was in Almaden, but it was called Woodside. That was the name of the neighborhood. So when I would do things, I would refer to Woodside neighborhood. So you'd say, get your own market report for the Woodside neighborhood. Use Google Forms, and Google Forms captures their email address when they request it, and RPR makes a pretty cool looking PDF market report that you could send to somebody.
Yeah.
So you drag bait through the water for getting them to give up their emails, or you could buy a product. There's quite a few of them on the market where it's a subscription, but you put in people's names and addresses, and they look up their phone numbers and look up their email addresses and find their social media contacts and all that other scary stuff that people know about them. Right? You understand? They know. And so you pop in a name and a street address, and they find a lot of stuff.
Well, yeah, I would like to get that.
Right. We'll talk. But this is an issue. If you're going to make contact, how? Right? That's what they always keep saying about aliens, I guess. But anyhow, anyhow. So, what is prospecting? If you don't like that word, how about appointment setting activities. So I've had people say, well, there's texting, prospecting. Well, I've set appointments from texting, right? So if the answer is you can get an appointment with somebody by doing it, I'm cool with that, right? Now, marketing is, like I mentioned, the geographic territory, right? And sending a Facebook ad, that means I have to spend money, but it gets people to react, which is easier for me to handle because they're obviously interested in something they wanted a market report, right? You know, and now I know where they live, you know, and I can probably get them. So prospecting is when we do something actively to get clients, whereas marketing is when we do something to get them to contact us. The good news about prospecting is it doesn't cost anything to talk to people. The bad news is it can take a long time, right? It's a time-consuming process. Marketing, the good news is it doesn't take very much time. And the bad news is it costs money, usually, to do it. And you're going to find that a balance of the two is what you're going to end up doing, right? So that you want to be prospecting-based and then marketing-enhanced. Right. Once you have income in a regular steady stream, you should be devoting some of it to marketing. Rejection, if you bring, we already went through all this about bringing something, and if you have something of value, particularly if it's something that they've requested. So let's talk about what would you need to do in order to build up your business such that you're able to have those appointments, right, that we talked about, and make $200,000 a year. If you were to talk to, the general rule of thumb, by the way, is that it takes about 50 contacts, 50 conversations in order to end up with somebody closing a real estate transaction. I've seen in some of the C21 materials it's 40 is the recommended dose, but I'm telling you, my experience, let's say 50. So you have to talk to 50 people in order to get an appointment, right? 50 contacts. Hi, my name is Mike. I'm in C21. You know, 50 of those in order to get an appointment. So if we had 10 contacts a day, right? If we made it our mission every day to initiate contact with 10 people, and we did that 5 days a week, that would be 50 a week. And if it takes 50 to get the appointment, and that would be an appointment a week. And if we did an appointment a week for 48 weeks and closed 25% of them, that would be 12 transactions, and at, I don't know, $15,000, $17,000 a pop, it starts to add up. Is that right? And then I did this, well, how many transactions? Let's say you just kept doing that. If you did it 50 a week for 50 weeks, that would have been 2,500 contacts you would have made. From 10 a day, in a year of doing that, you'd have 2,500 contacts, assuming that people buy and sell real estate once every 15 years, which is, I don't know, could be very conservative depending on where you are. That's 166 transactions that would be involved in that group of 2,500 people in any given year. 166 transactions, and let's say you're really bad at it. Really bad at real estate, and 90% of the people that meet you will not work with you. Only 1 out of 10 do. That's 16 transactions, right? That's at a 10% conversion rate from talking to 10 people a day. See, I know why people fail at real estate. They don't talk to enough people. Huh? You understand? I mean, they may not have even had a plan, but, you know, how many people do you have to talk to in order to get the appointments, in order to get the contracts, in order to close the transaction? Now, if you're really good at it, you could expose yourself to their sphere of influence. So it's not just 166 transactions from those people, it's the people they know, right? Which you can get your hands on. One tip for them, how are we doing on time? Not too bad. So let's say you sell a buyer a house, right? You represent a buyer in the closing of the transaction, and closing gift. Anybody heard about closing gift? What would be a good closing gift? What, depends?
My last one, I gave him a Costco 2 two big things of tissue paper
Oh.
and tie. Oh.
Yeah, that's a great. It's great to do that, but then it's gone at a certain point.
Yeah.
And they may not, and they
I have been doing gift baskets from Jafra products for some of the real estate people they hired me in the past. And so they tell me the theme of what they want. If it's a bathroom theme, if it's a kitchen theme, and I have worked with a shop that brings things from Italy in Denver.
Oh.
So I just get specific stuff that stays forever, like a kitchen theme, and they have all this unique gifts for their kitchen in a basket and a wine. And bathroom have towels that are uniquely designed and candles and stuff like that.
Great. That seems like a great gift.
So my closing gift is 1 month of I pay their cleaning people to come and clean their house, especially before they move in. I have a cleaning crew who comes and cleans their house, because that's
I always do that too.
That's something super duper helpful to them, because they're already making a big deal out of it. Okay, moving, cleaning, 2 days, and I say, let me take care of it. And the thing is, I give it to them, I give them 4 weeks, 4 times. So I say, you want to use it every week, you want to do it every 2 weeks, you tell me, and I'll make arrangements. So it gives me an opportunity to keep in touch with them and ask them if they were happy with these people, and then,
Those are all great suggestions. Mine is to throw a housewarming party for the buyers after they buy it. That we'll have the food brought in, we'll have it cleaned up afterwards. It'll be nice and neat when we're done, and you can invite all of your friends, family, relatives, and coworkers to come to the catered party at your new dates. And by the way, we're going to send out really nice invitations. So when do you think you can have the list to me of the people that you want me to invite?
Oh my goodness.
That's
Oh,
great.
wow.
So that's how we get into somebody's sphere of influence, right? And then you're there. Hopefully, and by the way, if you had the place, I'd be really nice to them up until that party, right? So, how important is the sphere of influence? This is from the National Association of Realtors survey of home buyers and sellers. 39% of the buyers found their agent from a referral from a friend or family member. Almost 40%. 15% had used the agent before. 71% interviewed only one agent. So about 40% of all the people use somebody that they were referred to. You understand why sphere of influence becomes important, and how if you can tap into a sphere of influence, that's big too. Home selling, 41% of sellers who used a real estate agent found their agent through a referral by a friend, family, and 23% had used the agent previously. 74% of sellers only contacted one agent. So most people that are listing homes, the highest percentage is they're doing it by working the sphere of influence and getting referrals. You understand, of all the ways in which they could find their agent, this is number one. Right? It's over the internet, over geographic farm, over anything else. It's sphere of influence. Right? There are companies that train you to do absolutely nothing else. They're by referral only, Brian Buffini, Joe Stumpf. I don't like the only part, right? But certainly doing business by referral. If it's a referral, you're less likely to interrogate the person, and you understand it's a referral, right? And it's a lot easier sometimes for you to work with. 70% of the time, they're only talking to one agent. Now, if you're new, there's something in this that could be valuable to you. Number one, most people think all real estate agents are the same. Right? I'm just telling you, most people think all real estate agents are pretty much the same. And they do the same things, and they do it about the same, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter, right? Who you use as a real estate agent. Many people believe that. And as a result, any kind of connection with you sometimes is good enough for them to decide to work with you. You like dogs, and they like dogs. Right? You're a dog lover. They're a dog. That's it, right? That's all you need, right? Why not? Oh, this is my $4 million house. She likes dogs. Well, she must do a good job, right? You know? And they're usually not interviewing a whole bunch of people. So if you're the one that gets to them first, and the chances are you're going to end up listing or working with them are really, really, really high. They only talk to one. So what are we going to do? I don't know. Now, there we go. All right. Do you have a database? Do you have a database? Do you have a program someplace? A spreadsheet? A customer relationship management program? Zap, Top Producer, Online Agent, Active Agent, Agent Achieve, Chime, Realty Juggler, any of those, right? Do you have Market Leader? Any of those programs? Right? Do you have a stack of index cards that you've written on with a stubby pencil, that you know, or a box where you have little scraps of paper that you throw names and phone numbers? I mean, do you have something, right? Right? Now, what you need to realize is that your database is your business. Right? Well, the way you have to think about this, I knew a guy that was at Century 21 10 years in a row. He was the #1 agent in Century 21. #1, 10 years in a row, then he retired. And he sold his real estate practice. He sold it. And the question is, what did he sell? By the way, he was grossing over $1 million a year, every year, in commissions. He got a huge amount of money up front and a residual over time. What did he sell? Was it his open house signs? His do not disturb occupants riders? His database, right? You understand? That's what he sold. He sold his client's database. And so a question, if you've been in the business for a while, how much would somebody pay you for your database?
Lots of money.
Lots of money. Well, that's good. So are you getting paid lots of money from your database? All right, well, we could work on that then. Let's talk about that. So if a doctor or a dentist sells their practice, do you know what they're really selling? Have you ever walked into the dentist and there's a new dentist? You know, do you know what they sold? They sold you, right? You understand? That's what they sold. They sold you. They sold their clients. They sold the database. So the goal, if we want to be successful in real estate, is to create a database. Someplace, somewhere. And we want to be able to communicate with the people in our database in a systematic way. So we would want to know to begin with, how many people do you have in your database? And then the question is how far do you need to go to get where you want to be? Where would you like to be? So, for example, a type of goal one could have is to generate a 10% return from the database and grow it by 250 over the next 12 months. That would be an example. All right. Now, one of the things that we know from studying this is that if you have a database and you're sending them 2 things a month, that you're going to get somewhere between 2.5% to a 5% return over about a year. So in a year, 2.5 to 5 people, you know, in that sort of range are going to either buy or sell a house or refer them to you. If you add a phone call to your database once a quarter, it jumps from, let's say, 5% to 7.5%. And if you throw in a let's meet in person at the happy hour, at my 4th of July party, at a holiday party, at least once a year you meet them face to face, it raises the rate of return to 10%. To 10%. That means if you had 100 people in your database, you could get 10 transactions just from the people that are in that database. You understand the goal would be to find 10 people that are going to refer 2 people a year to us, and maybe another 20 that would refer 1 person a year to us. That's a lot of transactions. right, from a relatively small number of people. So where are you now in your database? How many people do you have? So what would your goal be? Now, if you're wondering what a good goal might be, like it's an interim goal just for fun, how about 600 people in your database? Right. And so if you had a goal of 600, how many do you have now? Let's say 50. How many would you need to add? And when we divide that by 12, we're going to come up with a monthly goal in order to add people into our database. Now, if we want to add 600 people in a year, what would that really look like? So we want to add 600 people a year, and so there's 12 months. That means we have to add 50 people a month, right? And if we divide by 4 weeks, that means we have to add 12 and a half people each week. And if we divide by 5, that's 2.5 people a day. 2.5. So talking to 2, see, I'm really lowering my standards. 2 people a day, right? You understand? 2 people a day. Right? If you talk to 2 people a day about real estate, got their contact information and put them into your database, and you did that 5 days a week, that would be 10 a week times 4 weeks is 40 a month times 10 months is 400 people. Right? You understand? You'd be selling homes from just doing that. Just 2 a day. Right? You could do that in 30 minutes. Now, if you want to be serious about making money in real estate, why not go for 20 a day? Especially all those who said that they were full-time, 40-hour. Why not 20? In 3 hours, which remember is an 80% focus of a 20-hour work week, in 3 hours, could you talk to 20 people about real estate? In 3 hours? I think the answer is yeah. You can talk to 20 people in 3 hours. So 3 hours a day would allow you to talk to 20 people a day, and you can guess what those numbers would be really good, wouldn't they? Yes?
After making all the contacts, what about the follow-up
conversation? So that's the fortune is in the follow-up. One of the things that we know, thank you, she's paid to ask the right questions at the right time. Very good. We know that 70% of all the real estate business comes from follow-up, not initial contact. Right? 70% of all the real estate business comes from follow-up, not initial contact.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that's why we have to have a database. The fortune is in following up with people. Who would you be talking to every day? How about some of the people you talked to before, but it's been 3 months since you talked to them? Right? Talk to those people. We're going to organize and build a database. These are the 4 laws. Feed it every day. Communicate with it in a systematic manner. That's the follow-up. And then service the leads quickly. Right? And this would include everybody we know, everybody that would recognize us, everybody. Everybody. I have a list coming up of 101 ways to lead generate. Did you know that? Free, no extra charge, 101 ways to lead generate. It's coming. So we're going to, what do you do when you're talking to people? Well, first of all, it wouldn't hurt if they knew you were in real estate. So looking out over the, I see Ryan has a name badge, Andrea has a name badge. Who else has a name badge? Who else? Sylvia, you wearing a name badge? Name badge? Not like a realtor pen, okay. So, we have a lot of secret agents. Secret agents. It's true. That's right. So if you wear something like I'm wearing something like this, right? I was at one of our other offices and there's a coffee shop right next door, and I was in the coffee shop and somebody approached me and said, my husband and I are thinking about buying a house, right? Because that's what she saw. Right, now this is the coffee shop right next to the office where all the agents go and have coffee, but very few of them wear name badges or do anything like that, so they're invisible, right? So if you're paid to talk to people, would it be nice if people just started talking to you about real estate? Would that be nice? I was at a realtors meeting, it's called, the tour, and downstairs where the restrooms are, you walk through the dining area is a group of old guys, drinking coffee, and I'm walking by, and one guy yells, "How's the real estate business?" Right? Because I was wearing this, right? How's the real estate business? one of the values of having a name brand is that people know the brand, right? It wouldn't hurt you to let people know that you do too. I'm just saying, right? So we have to meet people. And if people would meet us, that would be great. Here are some words, right? You can come up with your own, but coming up with words is something you're going to...
Let me tell you this.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be the devil's advocate. This is no longer happening because people are so busy. They don't see people around them anymore.
Well, I understand. I drive too, and so I know that. I can't argue with that. However, do many of us drink coffee?
Yes.
Right. So what's happened is where do you meet people is where do they drink coffee? Right. And so, and I ask people. I don't know. This may be a personal religious type question, but is it Pete's? Is it Starbucks? Is it Phil's? What is it? Right? And then they say, well, I like Pete's. Great. Why don't we meet there? Right? So one of the metrics that I think that you should look at in your schedule is how many coffee dates that you have each week. By the way, 2 coffee dates a day with the right people would be good. Now, this may sound like insanity, I know, but some of you aren't drinking enough coffee, right? I know, that sounds scary, right? But if instead of just going and drinking coffee by ourselves, we made a habit, most people eat lunch, right? I think most do. And I was talking to an experienced agent who was saying, well, give me one idea, one thing that I could do that would increase my business. And I said, go to your database, pick out the top 50 people and go to lunch with one a week for the next 50 weeks. And I could see she was like, yeah, that would probably increase my business. Yeah. So we may not be meeting people at the roller rink or wherever, but we still meet people, right? My Starbucks seems to be filled with people, right? Now, what I would do is I'm not going to call them up and say, hey, I got my real estate license. So I just was wondering if you want to have coffee, right? Because they might see through that. But how about let's just have coffee, and then when we're sitting there, I'm going to say, well, Al, this is really good. I haven't seen you in a long time. Tell me what's going on. Tell me about yourself. How's the job? How are the kids? How's the... Right? And then they'll talk, right? Isn't that right? And then they'll get exhausted eventually at some point and say, so what's up with you? Right? And then you say, well, I'm in real estate. I'm really doing some fun, and we're taking off, and the market's great, and And then you say the way people like me come to know of people that are buying, selling, or investing in real estate is from people like you that are nice enough to let us know if they hear of somebody who's thinking of doing that. Let me ask you an honest question. Now, this would be something I would do depending on the level I knew him, but let me ask you an honest question. If you were to hear of somebody that was thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, would you feel comfortable referring them to me? Now, some people, the room got quiet on that one, because some people might say no. No, I never, So, cross them off your holiday gift list, right? You understand? No special card this year. But there's a good chance they're going to say, yeah, sure, right? Yeah, wonderful. And by the way, I know this isn't probably, top of your mind and everything, so occasionally I might just ask you if you've heard of anybody who's out of favor. Yeah, whatever. Now, in my view, and by the way, sometimes I would nail that at the end with, great, I'm counting on you for this. I'm counting on you. Now, has my chances of getting a referral gone up?
Yeah.
Right? You're going to hear this from agents all the time, where they'd say, that so-and-so, one of the guys that I was coaching, he was so angry. This friend named Tim. He's known Tim for over 20 years. They are involved in a social activity together like every week. Does everybody know where this, they went to each other's weddings and divorces. And Tim sells his house, and Tim does not list his home with Rick. Just doesn't do it. All right, and he's angry, let's say, that about Trader Tim is what I heard. And so I asked him, how many conversations did you have with Tim about real estate? And the answer was none. That's the answer. All right. And so I said, it wasn't Tim's fault. It was your fault. How about this? People don't do business with people they know. People do business with people they know that ask them to do business. Right? Do you understand? Just because you once sent an email to all your friends saying you're in real estate and you posted some selfies on Facebook, the idea that that's all you need to do to convince them to work with you is probably a mistake. Right? You understand? Because you're not top of their mind. They're not still seeing you as a real estate agent. Put them into your database. Send a handwritten note. Or a handwritten text. I don't know. A note. All right? Sending somebody a handwritten note, if you know their address, is something special. Something that not everybody gets. At some point, we want to distinguish ourselves from other real estate agents. Most real estate agents look alike, sound alike, do the same stuff, drive the same cars. Some better than others, but drive the same kind of cars, right? And so if we're going to be different, we need to act different. And sending a handwritten note is not what most people do. Build friendly relationships. Thank them. Talk to them about real estate. And thank them for keeping you in mind when they hear of somebody buying or selling, even though they haven't. There is a campaign that I recommend for if you've talked to somebody to follow up with them once a week for the next 8 weeks. Once a week for the next 8 weeks. So, how about Alistair sitting in the front? What's your favorite? Name a potato chip. Lay's. How about another one? So, if we left her alone with a pen and a piece of paper, she could probably eventually write down a bunch of potato chips. Right? You understand if you stop and think about it. But most of us have like 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 in our mind that we could call on. This is true for soda. It's true for a whole bunch of things. Right? You understand? There's only 1 or 2, maybe 3 in our mind that we're going to hold it in. The rest of it is in a hard drive someplace, right? Stored. So if somebody says, do you know a good real estate agent? We have to be the first one they think about, right? If we're the second or the third, we're out, right? Because they're not going to probably say they're going to say one name. And the question is, are they going to say yours? So let's say I meet with somebody and I go back and I do this thing about meeting with vendors. I believe that one of the things you ought to do is talk to vendors. So if I go meet with a vendor, the first thing I would do is I'd send them a handwritten note. Throw in a business card. Maybe a Starbucks, next one is on me. Thanks for meeting with me today. Look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks for meeting with me. Thanks for saying that you're going to help me build my real estate business, that if you hear of anybody, you're going to refer them to me. Thank you, right? Write them a little note, mail it to them. Week 1. Week 2, I call them. What would be the script? What would you call them? What would you talk about? How about did you get my handwritten notes? Right? Because with the Starbucks card, you never know. Sometimes, they disappear. And then the next week, we send them an item of value. So the item of value could be a newsletter, what's going on in the real estate business, something that's happening in the market, a tip or something that might be useful, at least a list of holiday events that are coming up in the area, something. The next week, we call them. What's the script? Did you get my item of value? Right? We then would have another item of value. We then might have coffee with them. We might send them another item of value. We might have lunch with them. Now, by this time, or just call, but you understand, by this time, they know who we are. And at that point, if somebody were to ask them, do you know a real estate agent, the chances are they're going to think of us much higher than it was when we began this process. So we do that once a week for 8 weeks, just so we could build ourselves into their consciousness so that when they hear real estate agent, they think of us. We want them to think of us if they want to refinance. We want them to think of us if they want to remodel their kitchen. We want them to think of us if they want to talk to a financial planner or a CPA or a real estate attorney. We want them to talk to us if they need a plumber or a landscaper or a house cleaner, or we want them to talk to us. Right? You understand? For all of these things. Then the 33 touch, I have an example of that, is we do something for 33 times over a 12-month period. So, for example, let's say we sent them 2 things, either in the mail or by email. That's 24. We call them once a quarter. That would be 4, which would make it 28. We send them a handwritten note or a text if we don't have their physical address after we've called them. That brings us up to 32. And most people have birthdays. Most do. And so on their birthday, we do something that's 33 touches in a 12-month period. Right? By this time, they probably know we're in real estate. Right? Isn't that right?
That would be sad.
It would be sad if they don't. When you get a lead from these people, compensate them with gratitude. And one of the things you want to do is if you make the person happy that they referred to you. And if they're happy, you say, well, are you happy with everything the way it's been going? Yes, we are. You know what would really help is if you would let Bob know that you appreciate him referring you to me, that you're happy with the job I've done. Well, that makes Bob much more likely to send me referrals if the one he did send me calls him up and says, hey, thanks for referring Mike to me. All right? He was great, right? I'm going to get more referrals. Don't always stay in touch at least every 30 days. And we want to sort of start to classify people. I know this doesn't sound, So an advanced advocate is somebody that we know is out trying to get us referral business. That if they heard 2 people talking about real estate, they might go up and interrupt them and say, hey, I hear you talking about real estate. I'm talking to Sandy guy, he's great. Right? That's an advanced advocate. We should do something more for them. It should be special, the kinds of things we send. That, for example, on their birthday, maybe a present, right? Whereas some people might get an email. An advocate is somebody that we believe would refer people to us. They say they're going to refer people to us. When I said, can I count on you? They said, yeah, you can count on me. That's an advocate. The friendly database are people that we know that we put in our database, but we've never really had much of a talk with them, and we're not really too sure what they would do. And then we have names and phone numbers of people. We have no idea who they are. I don't know about you, but no idea. The police called and said, we need you to come and pick him out of a lineup. I'd be like, I had no idea, right? No idea, I can't help you. And what we want to be doing is to move people from one level to the next level, to keep moving people up, right? To get the gist, the names, and to become a friendly database, and the friendly to become advocates, and the advocates to become advanced advocates. Yeah. And if you can find 10 people that'll refer 2 people a year to you, and 30 people that will refer 1, that's 50 sales, 50 sales. And at $20,000, commission, 50 sales. Could you live on you could live on that. Might have to cut back. What do you talk about? Let's say you are not very social and don't know what to say to people. It's always easier to ask them questions about themselves. It's a subject they know, right? And usually are comfortable talking. And so Ford is what do we do if we don't know what we're doing? Right? You'd ask people about their family, their job. Are you causing trouble back there? Oh. I'm just...
You don't need to break, right?
Oh, do you need a break? Is that it? How many people need a break? Want a break?
An hour.
Oh, I'm old too, so I understand. I mentioned about the 8x8, the 8 steps once a week for 8 weeks. I talked a little bit about the 12-month, 2 mailings or emails, the 1 call, all that. Here's an example. You ought to be posting on social media daily. For some of you, I know that's cutting back. I'm sorry. Videos and things like that. But those are the, activities for sphere of influence. Weekly coffee dates, quarterly calls, social media. Almost famous. You need to let people, in one way to look at it, you're the product. You understand that we don't sell houses. Sellers sell houses, right? What do we sell? We sell a package of services for buyers and sellers to help them with problems and to get what they want when they sell houses or buy houses, right? We're selling a package of services. This is a personal service, which means personal, which means you. Now, one of the values of being part of Century 21 is most people have heard of that too, right? So even if they haven't heard of you, they've heard of us, and we've been around a long time. That helps, right? Because they figure you must have been around a long time too. But you need to use your picture. We know that people are more likely to relate if they see a picture. They're more likely to keep a business card if it's got a picture. It wouldn't hurt to have your own little slogan, trademark, that sort of thing. It helps to have some consistency in the colors and the way you present yourself. It's good to have a story about why you're in real estate and what do you like about being in real estate and how do you service people. It's good to do volunteer work. It's good to wear your name tag. I'm just saying. Have a personal, and come from contribution, which is asking people how you could help them. I've included some scripts. New to real estate. All right. I'm not going to read them all to you, but reminding people that you're in real estate. Generating referrals. And here's some of mine. Let me ask you an honest question. Do you feel comfortable referring somebody to me? That sort of thing. Follow-up calls. When you're in a transaction, the best time to ask for a referral is when you're in the transaction, not afterwards. Right? If it's a seller, they're probably leaving. If it's a buyer, they're moving in, they're doing stuff. Right? So they may be busy. During the transaction, transactions are sometimes like engagements. Sometimes people are happier during the engagement period than right after the marriage. You know what I mean? So they're usually happy while they're in that process. And what's happened, like say they're buying, their friends are saying, so how's your transaction going? They're saying, yeah, we bought a home. They're being asked during the transaction, how's it going? And there's probably people that they know that are going to say, well, I've been thinking about buying a home. How do you like your agent? So you should mention this while you're in escrow, right? While it's pending. The script it says here is an easy one. When you mention to others that you bought, sold a home, they will tell you of their own moving plans. Can I ask you an honest question? Do you feel comfortable referring people to me? Another sphere of influence script. Another one. People are always asking me for scripts. There you go. There you go. By the way, I don't know if you've heard of this. There's this website which you can find all of the real estate scripts pretty much that are out there. I don't know if you've heard of that site. It's called Google. Is the name of the site. And if you were to type in real estate scripts, do you know what you'd find? Lots of them. Now, how many of you like the idea of learning scripts? Like it. We got a few people. How many of you don't like the idea of learning scripts? Nobody. How many of you don't like the idea, but you won't raise your hand because you think it looks bad, but you really don't like it? So since what we're paid to do to talk to people, we ought to practice that thing for which we will be paid. And what that means is, for example, I can remember going on a listing appointment, and the seller, had like this list of questions, and he said, "Give me 10 reasons why I should list with you." And when I got to 4, he said, "You've already said that one." Right? In other words, I was running out at 3. I was struggling. Right? And so I decided the next time somebody asked me, I'm going to have 10 reasons that they have a list of homes. Right? So somebody says, we want to think it over. Right? Or they look like they like the house. Are you interested in making an offer before somebody else does? And they say, well, we'd like to think it over. I'm like, well, I guess you should. Really, yeah, I guess you should. Right? And then they it's a big deal, right? It's a big expense. And then by the end of the weekend, the property's gone pending. Right? And they didn't get it. And now I'm telling them, well, what was your second choice after that one? And they become unhappy. And then they decide not to buy a house right then. And so they're not happy, are they? Because they didn't get a house. I'm not happy. Am I? Am I happy? So what I did is I allowed them to make a mistake for which they would later regret. So now I say to people, when they say, well, we want to sleep on it, for a couple of nights, and I always say, that's fine, but you need to know that if you sleep on it, you might never sleep in it. Right? Just saying. Go ahead. But somebody else may make an offer before you do. Right? Now, learning what to say, you understand, more people, I'm not convincing people to do things they don't want to do. I'm keeping people from making mistakes that they're going to later regret. And when they make objections, do you know what to say? When you meet somebody, do you have an elevator speech? Every week, if somebody said they see you're wearing your name badge, and or other bling, and so they say, so how's the real estate business? And they ask you a question, do you have like an elevator speech, a little thing that you would say to somebody when they ask you that question? Do you look at the MLS, the statistics every day, and look for something in them that might be interesting to talk to someone else, to share? So when they say, so how's the business? You could say, well, it's really changed from last year. Active listings are 58 days on the market. Last year it was 8. Why are you asking? Are you interested? Do you currently rent or do you own? Are you interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate? Having conversations. So we are going to want to plan what we're going to say, practice what we're going to say, so that when we're actually in the field, we'll know what to say. 101 ways to lead generate. Facebook inspectors, furniture sales, car dealers, title companies, moving companies, judges, charities, Girl, Boy Scouts, ski clubs, hockey clubs, new home builders, building co-owners, housing and urban development, gyms, running clubs, HOA associations, banks, short sales.
I'm a little bit curious with judges. How do you contact them?
Well, usually for me, they're standing in front, and, and then you just I give them my card, and
unless you're in trouble.
So do you know any judges? No, some people do. Right, and this is basically a list of all the people you might know. Right, when you really look at my list, you're going to find it's pretty much just a list of people you might know. And I've known judges who were investors in real estate, up in Santa Cruz. So I've done real estate transactions with the judge. So I put it, and no, he wasn't my judge, but a family friend. Realtor seminars. National Associate Realtor seminars. How would you get business from a realtor seminar?
Well, there are other people who are not realtor who work during those seminars. I don't know.
All right, that's true.
Referrals.
Referrals. So would it be, for example, in March, Century 21 has a convention in Las Vegas is what I was trying to say. And one of the values of going to it is you meet real estate agents in Century 21 from all over the United States. are there certain states that people from Silicon Valley are more likely to move to? And Nevada, by the way, is one of them. So is it possible that somebody that owns a house in San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco, has gone to Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Nevada, and talked to a real estate agent about buying a property there? And then the real estate agent finds out that they own a house in Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco, San Mateo, and the agent says, well, if you would like, I could find you one of our local agents to help you sell your house. Right? And because you met that agent and you had a conversation and you gave him the card, he gave him and you followed up and put him on your newsletter and you contacted them and did all that kind of stuff, they send you the referral.
Okay.
Right? I got one last year from same company, but a different branch up in Santa Rosa. It was a 30% referral fee, but it was a listing that was 4 miles from the new Apple campus. I didn't complain. Right? So meeting agents from not just C21, but other real estate agents elsewhere can be a source of referrals. Past spouses. I'm surprised nobody's asked me about that. I also put marriage counselors and singles organizations on the list. I know agents who have done transactions from referrals from their previous husbands and wives. I'm just saying, everybody goes into the database, right? You know what I'm saying? Everybody. Marriage counselors, cleaners, doctors, billboards, places of work. Do you understand that pretty much anywhere you go and anything you do could potentially help you grow your real estate business? Just about anything. Because virtually everyone you know and everyone you meet is either going to buy or sell real estate at some time in the future, or they'll know somebody that will. Virtually everybody. So if you like pottery and you go take a pottery class, you'll probably meet people that want to buy or sell real estate. There are people that will work with you just because you like pottery and they like pottery, and all real estate agents are pretty much the same anyhow, so why not? Why not you? Why not? Oh, you understand?
How did you arrange this? Not even alphabetically?
No, I have trouble. I'm dyslexic. There's a joke there sometimes. Do you have a value proposition? Remember I said 10 reasons why I should list my home with you, that sort of thing. 10 services that you would provide a buyer, 10 ways in which you would help a buyer get a better deal when they were buying a house, 10 things that you would do to help a seller get more money when they sell their house. A value proposition. This is what I do and this is how it's going to help you. And to be able to articulate it, to be able to show it to somebody, to be able to describe it. This is what I'm going to do. If I'm your agent and you want to buy a house, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work. It'd be nice to have a personal brochure, a professional brochure. Right? Most agents don't. But most professionals do. Right? You have a brochure that you can give to somebody that says, buying, this is what I do. Selling, this is what I do. Investing, this is what I do. Call me. Why should I hire you to sell or find the homes? And that's the value propositions. I already sort of discussed that. The 80-20 rule. Pareto's principle. Pareto was an Italian economist. He was studying wealth distribution in Italy, and he noticed that 20% of the people in Italy had 80% of the wealth. He also had a garden, and he had pea pods, and he kept notes, and he noticed that 20% of his pea pods produced 80% of his peas. And it was virtually the same percentage as wealth distribution in Italy, and he was, that's interesting. And so he started looking for the 80-20 rule. Now what the 80-20 rule says is that 80% of our results, 80% of the money we're going to earn in real estate is going to come from 20% of what we could. If we made a list of everything that a real estate agent could do, should do, ought to do, must do, we made a list of all those activities, 20% of those activities are going to produce 80% of the income. And 80% of those activities are going to produce 20% of the income. All right? This is sometimes referred to as the big rocks. If you Google search the phrase business planning in big rocks, you find there's a bigrocks.com. There's videos about the big rocks. And what the videos show is a guy with a great big, clear canister, and he has a pile of rocks, a pile of gravel, a pile of sand, and a pitcher of water. And it's how do you get all of that stuff into this one container? And there's only one way that it works, and that's to put the big rocks in first. And then the gravel goes around it, and then the sand, and then eventually the water. No other sequence doesn't work. You see the metaphor I'm going with? There are some big rocks in real estate. There is a 20%. And you might be able to guess, but what would be on the 20% list?
Prospecting.
Prospecting. What else? Did I hear somebody say appointments? Meeting people. Very good. Having an appointment with somebody. Right? We lead generate prospect to get appointments. Having appointments. What else? Farming.
It's part of prospecting, right?
It is part of prospecting. It's marketing, really, not prospecting. And I would put it on my calendar, but I wouldn't count it as the,
Is follow-up part of prospecting?
Follow-up could be, yes. That would be part of the talking to people, part of prospecting. How about negotiating contracts, showing homes, closing transactions? Is there a lot that real estate agents do that's not on that short list I just read it off? A lot. Right? A lot. And so the question is, first of all, does the 80% have to be done? If all you do is the 20%, which is finding people that want to buy or sell real estate, we can help you with the rest of it until you have systems in place. Right? You understand? You can get people to help you if you have clients. Right? If you don't have clients, there's no help. So what we want to make sure, there's a difference between doing a to-do list and a must-do list. Sometimes this seems incongruous to people because, let's say, I do 8 things and you only do 2 things. Who's ahead? I did 8 and you only did 2. Who's ahead? And the answer is it depends on which 8 I did and which 2 you did. Right? And so if we're doing the right 2 things and putting off the 8, you're saying we don't want to put off the 20% because we would rather, print out things from the MLS, and read a book or post on a Facebook group, right? We want to make sure that in our calendar, we're calendaring the 20%. A strategic business plan. 1-page strategic business plan. Now what we're going to do, the way this would work, is you would start with a goal. Let's say our goal is to close 12 transactions. 12 transactions. We could have a goal to add, this is for, let's just start with, I'm not going to make this complicated. Our goal is to do 12 transactions. How about that? Now there are 3, that's our objective, our 3 major goals. If we're going to do 12 transactions, the choices we really have are buyers and sellers. So if my goal is to do 12 transactions, what percentage of those should be buyers and what percentage should be sellers? Does it matter?
Does it matter or
does it matter? Does it matter?
Oh, okay. No.
No, doesn't matter.
No. I mean, well, you would want to have more sellers than buyers, right?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, because sellers, you put your sign.
Right.
Simply.
So will a buyer, I've tried this before with buyers that I'm working with. I asked them if they would wear one of those like sandwich signs when they went to work that had my picture, my name, my phone number on it, and said, I'm working with him, and wear it when and they wouldn't do it. I don't know. I've never understood that. So buyers are not walking around advertisements for us, are they?
Yeah. No.
But our sign is in front of the seller's house.
Yes.
Right. It might have our picture on it. It might have our phone number on it. We are authorized, in fact, encouraged to promote that as much as we possibly can. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Right? So, and if we do that, are we going to find buyers?
Yeah.
Oh,
If you promote a listing well, you're going to find buyers.
Of course.
Right? And you're going to find other sellers. By the way, it's a lot easier to get listings when you've got listings
Yeah.
than it is to get listings when you don't got listings.
Yeah.
Right? So I've had this discussion with people that I coach. One of them, she said, well, when I get a listing, my goal is going to be to double end it to find the buyer. And I'm like, that's not the goal. The goal when you get a listing is not to find the buyer for that home. That is not the goal. The goal, number one, is to get another listing. All right? And number two, to find a buyer. Because I know that if you focus on finding a buyer for that home, you're going to miss buyers that are buyers for other homes. Right? You understand? The goal is to get more clients. So, out of 12 transactions, how many should be listings? How about
8?
8? I like that. 8 listings. And we're going to then have how many buyers? 4? 6? 4. Is that all? Oh, good. 4 buyers. We're only doing 12. So, what the categories are, number 1 is sellers. Number 2 is buyers. And number 3, there's one other thing we have to work on besides buyers and sellers, and that's the product. That's the product. Do you know what the product is? You. You. So now we're talking about listings. What would be a way in which I could get a listing? Have we talked about sphere of influence today? Sphere of influence. So I could get a listing from a sphere of influence. What's another way I could find somebody that wants to sell their home? Old clients. All my clients are old. Oh, you mean past clients. Oh, okay. Old clients. Yes. I don't have any young clients. Is there anybody out there that we know wants to sell their home but they don't have an agent? What are those people called? Begins with an F and ends in SBO.
For sale by owner.
For sale by owner. How about a for sale by owner? Is that somebody that wants to sell their home but is not working with a real estate agent?
Yes.
All
I
right.
just sold a for sale by owner.
So it works. It works. What's another way? Somebody mentioned farming, geographic farming. Would that be a way to find somebody that wants to sell a house? Any other ways? If we do open houses, can we find people that want to sell their home as well? Those people that want to buy. So what we're doing now is we're coming up with 5 things that we could do to find sellers. Does everybody see where this is going? All right. Now we want some buyers. So some of them will overlap. Sphere of influence. Old clients. Right? We're going to call them past clients. I don't like the old part. Previous clients. Some of them are passed on. Past clients, sphere of influence, open houses. Anybody else? How else could we find somebody that wants to buy a house? What is a first-time home buyer doing now?
Getting pre-approved.
Renters. They're renting. All right? And we could do things to reach out to. If I were thinking about buying a house, would I talk to a loan agent?
Yeah.
I might talk to a loan agent. Do you think I could make friends with some loan agents?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Love that.
All right. Are they hard? I teach new agents about going to make friends with loan agents, and some have said that they were scared to do it. And I'm like, you haven't met very many loan agents, you know what I mean? But they'll be happy to meet you. So we've got different things that we could do, right? We make a list of what. Now, this is just a list. It doesn't have to be your list. It doesn't have to be 5. I'm just saying. So the product, that's you. Do you have a listing presentation? I went last year with a an agent that I was coaching in a listing appointment, and the guy said, this isn't normal, but he said, okay, show me your presentation. Let's hear it. And he sat back, had a little pen to take notes. Let's hear your presentation. How would you like to do that? Stand in front of them. That's what he wanted. I stood up and I did the presentation. All right. Do you have one?
Old school, huh?
Old school. Yeah. How about your meeting with a buyer? Do you have a buyer consultation?
Yeah.
Do you have a package, a buyer package? Do you know how to explain to a buyer why they're going to get a better deal buying a home working exclusively with you than they're going to get working with a bunch of different agents at once? Can you explain what's in it for them to make an exclusive commitment to work with you?
And actually, I emailed that to them before I meet with them.
Yeah, well, that can work. To me, that's like me sending a prenuptial agreement before the first date. Just thought you better look this over.
Just tell them, hey, these are the things we're going to be talking about. These questions that you have.
I email them stuff too, but sometimes when I ask people to sign a contract, I usually do it in front of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a buyer consultation? How many of you not only have listing presentation and buyer consultation packages, you've got 3 of each in your car right now. So if you ran into somebody and they said, yeah, I'm thinking about buying a house,
I don't have
let's
it
talk.
on paper.
Let's
It's
talk.
all on the computer.
How many of you have it? So do I. I have both.
Yeah.
Right? I have both. But I would hazard that not everybody has it on their computer either. I'm going out on a limb. But I don't think everybody right now is ready to do a listing presentation or a buyer consultation. I may be wrong. But what else could you do? Could you, could you study prospecting? How about this? I'm just going to say, study scripts. That would include prospecting scripts. It would include objection handling scripts. Right? When they say, I want to think it over, what do you say? When they say, whatever they say, I think I'm overpaying for the house. Right? I don't think the house is worth this much.
I would say, yes, you are overpaying for the house, but the market dictates that everybody overpays for the house.
How about this? The market has changed such that appraisal is usually a contingency now, at least where I'm seeing contracts. I'm just saying, appraisal is usually a contingency now. So this is what I say to buyers. You cannot overpay for this house. It's not possible to overpay for this house. And that's because the lender is going to send an appraiser to go look at the house. And it's either going to appraise for the price you offered or it will not appraise for the price you offered. If it does appraise for the price you offered, you should feel comfortable in the fact that an expert, independent, conservative third party has verified that it's a fair price. And if it doesn't appraise for the price that you offered, you don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it. And we're in a position to tell the seller, hey, look, your house isn't obviously worth as much as you thought. Right? You're going to have to adjust your price to meet the appraisal. You can't overpay. Not if you have an appraisal contingency. Right?
Or if you're willing to overpay, because in the seller's market, the end will go.
Right. Right now, this is not my experience in my area. Yeah. This is not the bid up market. This is the, where...
You're in the San Jose area, right?
San Jose and Santa Clara, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in the peninsula, which is
similar.
Still pretty
hot. Well, it's by the way, those 1.8 months of inventory is not a lot compared to what normal markets look like. Yeah. But I'm just saying, we're in the average days on market right now, remember, was about 50.
Yeah.
Right? So when you see 50, the question for pricing strategies is what does the seller want to do and when do they want to do it? Yeah. Because if our average days on market is 50, right, and they're not pricing, their strategy is not a good strategy, then you've got problems.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. What else could we do to make ourselves a better real estate agent? We're going to learn a listing presentation, learn a buyer consultation. We're going to study scripts. Did I hear somebody say, know the market?
Yeah. exactly.
I didn't hear anybody say it, but I thought I heard it in my head, one of those voices.
Agree with you.
So that means that you should be really curious about what homes are listed for, which homes are on the market, what happened to them. One of the cool things about the ZAP website, which I know you all are using, right? I know that, is that if you do something called a property insight, which means you're previewing property, you know you ought to be looking at homes that are on the market if you're a professional realtor.
Yeah.
All right, does everybody understand? You ought to be previewing. You shouldn't just wait until you have a buyer, right? You ought to be doing it now. You have on the website the ability to do what's called property insights, where you could say, looks really good, like what they did to the kitchen, that sort of stuff. And then on your website, when somebody goes there, that property will appear where your listings would appear, assuming you had them. In other words, it kind of looks like they're your listings, right? So these are some featured properties, and you have comments that you've made about them, and you understand you're now a real estate agent. I'll tell you, one of the things that'll make your friends and family think of you as a real estate agent more is when you talk about real estate in terms of, I saw this house, that.
Yeah.
Right? You understand? As soon as you start talking to it's a 5-bedroom, 2-story, it's got a downstairs bedroom, 1.5 baths downstairs, the master's upstairs with 3 other bedrooms and a hall. This is a in-law arrangement. You got grandma downstairs, she's got her own bathroom, she's got her own place, everybody else is upstairs. Who do you know that might be interested in something like this? How about this question to ask people? Of all the people you know, who's most likely to be interested in a property like this? Who's most likely to want to be moving up into something bigger? Of all the people you know. Now, do you understand that's not a yes or no question? If I just said, do you know anybody that wants to buy a bigger house? They could say, well, no. If I say, of the people you know who's most likely to want to buy a bigger house, I'm much more likely to hear a name that time. Much more likely to hear a name.
Yeah.
Great, maybe they'll be interested. Can I get their contact information? Know the market. Every day you ought to study how many listings there are, what's the average price, median price, is it going up or down, are there price decreases, price increases, are the number of expireds, cancels, and withdrawals going up, are they going down, what's happening? Right, because people are going to ask you, so how's the market? Have an answer. Right? What else could we do to make ourselves better? Would it be good to have a website?
Yeah.
Social media? How about learn internet lead generation? That would include social media. Do you think if you Google searched Instagram for real estate agents, you would find anything describing how real estate agents use Instagram? Yeah, you think so? Like videos and articles and courses and people that would help you, you'll find stuff. So does everybody, what this is going to give us, and I would want everybody to do one of these while we're, I assumed you're doing them while I was going through it, is to make one of these. This is a 1-page business plan. You can tack it on your mirror in the morning, It's a 1-page business plan. Now what we need to do with that is what is called a goal worksheet. You can put in your name. Our annual goal is still, let's say, 12 transactions. Now in this, I might say 12 transactions. I want to add 1,200 people to database. I want to go on 48 appointments, close 12 transactions, add that number of people. I'm making a list of what I'm going to need to do. And it wouldn't hurt to throw in some personal goals. Workout, exercise, something. Now, assuming we've come up with that, what do I need to do this month? So for monthly goals, we would write in like December. And what we're going to be asking ourselves is, okay, in December, what do I need to do? Now, closing a transaction in December is going to be difficult if it's not already open. or they're all cash and in a hurry. Right? You understand? Because even if you met somebody tomorrow, you're probably not going to close in December. So that's what's called a lag indicator. A lead indicator is something that results in something, and the lag indicator is the result. So what we're going to put down are projects and activities. So could we say we're going to create a database? Create a database. How about that? Could we create a listing presentation? Could we create a buyer consultation? Now, if we want to talk to 1,200 people in our database, that's 100 people a month. So why don't we contact 100 people? How about that? I'm going to contact 100 people. And I'm going to go on, let's say, 3 appointments, because we're a little bit into it. Right? Your numbers may vary, but you understand what I'm doing is what activities and what projects should I be doing in the month of December. Now we're down to week 1. And what I would usually do is put in the date. So this would be, I'll just start with the beginning. I usually do the whole thing, 12/3/2018. And now what I'm going to do for this first week is I'm going to make 50 contacts. Right? I'm going to make 50 contacts this week. Now what I'm also going to be doing is looking at that list where it says listing presentation, buyer presentation. It could have study scripts, all the things on my monthly list. And I'm going to decide which of those things, which of those projects that are on my monthly list, I'm going to do week number 1. Right? And so maybe I think the listing presentation is really important. I don't want to wait till the end of December, so I'm going to do my listing presentation. I'm going to put it together. I take it it's not cold in here anymore. Are you saying there's too much hot air? All right. All right. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to say week 250, week 350, that's not what we do. We just do week 1. Now let's say at the end of week 1, I make a review of what I did, and I did not do 50 contacts. I only did 40. Now, what's going to happen is either I'm going to have to step it up or I'm going to have to change my goals. And by the way, you know what? I worked for a company once and we tried to lock the goals so that once you set them, you couldn't change them. Because what agents generally wanted to do was change their goals to match their efforts rather than change their efforts to match their goals. One of them, anyhow. So if I've only done 40, that means I need to do more than 50 the next week in order to catch up. So I might be doing 60 contacts the second week, because I would write in a different color how many I really did. It said 50, but I only did 40. I'm behind by 10. Does everybody see I keep rolling it forward until I get the things done that need to be done in that particular week, month. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. The final Kool-Aid is time blocking. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. So that 135, one of the things, this is also sometimes called the GPS. One of the things that I've done is I've added, this is called the 1355. So, for example, sphere of influence was one of the items that we had for buyers and sellers. Isn't that right? Sphere of influence. So it wouldn't hurt us to come up with 5 strategies for working a sphere of influence, like grow 250 to 750, right? I'm just, as an example, that means we have to add 2 people a day. I'm going to categorize people A, B, C, like I went through. Make a custom marketing program for the people that I think are A's. and a custom 8x8 for the people that I think are A's, and put together a social media plan. That would be an example. Open houses, which was another thing we had on our list. What it would help for me to do is say I have a goal to do 3 open houses every month. And if I do 3 open houses every month, and that's 12 months, that's 36 open houses. And if I meet 5 people on average at the open house and I can get their contact information, that's 180 people I'm going to add to my database just for my open house. I'm going to have a custom once a week campaign for people that I met at the open house. Open house in a box is when you get one of those big boxes with the wheels and you have what a high level open house with all the whistles and bells. For example, at your open house, do you do a special open house for sellers? Do you have a special secret open house in the morning before the normal open house that you invite the neighborhoods for the neighbors only? Are you a nosy neighbor? If you're a nosy neighbor, you can come by at 11 o'clock. There's going to be food. There's going to be refreshments. You'll get a chance to look at the house. When the owners aren't there, regular open house starts at 1. Those people that walk in are potential sellers, and you have like an easel up or one of those boards that you can set up on a counter, and it's got stuff, handouts that prospective sellers would be interested in, information on the board about what's going on in the market with the graphs and the charts. You get that from our PR. When that's done, you take down the seller stuff, you put it away, you put up the buyer stuff. Now you have things about school rankings and other things that the buyers are more interested in, buyer packages to give to people. Now you've got that for the second open house. Everything you keep in a box so you have all of your open house stuff together so you're not running around crazy every time you do an open house. And the 7-level open house means we do more than show up, 20 minutes late to put up our signs, right? But we might boost it on Facebook, we create an event, we go to the neighborhood and invite the neighbors, we do a mail it to our database, right? Balloons, stained glass windows, leaflets dropped from airplanes. Never mind. Anyhow, I went too far. Prospecting, if you are going to pay for sale by owners and expireds, let's say, my suggestion would be to set a goal. You're going to do 3 a day. By the way, if you did 3 a day, you would do 720 in a year. A custom 8x8 for sale by owners and expireds. Circle prospecting is when something happens, a buyer or a seller buys or sells, a transaction closes in a neighborhood. We know that statistically, people around it are likely to move, right? Likely to buy or sell. Their homes will start coming on the market. So if this is the house that's sold, I talk to 10 people on this side of the street, 10 people on the other side. I go across the street, talk to 20 people. Hey, did you know that the Henderson home is sold? Right? Thought you'd like to know, maybe you're interested. This is one of the lines I use with people. I say, did you know that there were 40 sales in your neighborhood last month? The value of your home has changed as a result. Would you be interested in knowing how and how much? Huh? So that's circle prospecting. If we did 8 a day, either in person or on the phone, and we did that for 5 days a week times the 40, that would be 1,920 we could add just from knocking around sales and things like that. Practice scripts, practice a listing presentation. Does everybody see where I'm going with this? Vendor referrals, that's where you go out and you talk to landscapers, kitchen remodelers, anybody that might know anybody that's interested in buying or selling real estate. You would contact 2 a day, 5 days a week. That would be 480 you'd have added to your database in a year. Learn and practice vendor scripts, custom 8x8, put them on a touch, and you work with them to generate leads for both of you together. And these are just some routines that I threw in. They came from Tom Ferry. I stole them, but I liked. I did. It was R&D. Does everybody know what R&D stands for? Rip off and duplicate. That's what it stands for. That's what it stands for. Now, I didn't print this out, although I'd be happy to do so or email it to you. This isn't that. What I was going to talk about, and then this is pretty much I have several of these. If you were to Google search the phrase perfect week for real estate agent, week, W-E-E-K, you're going to find a lot of this. However, this is an example from in the morning. It would be useful for you to have a powerful morning routine. This icon from before, something called Miracle Morning, there was a version of the book written for real estate agents. One of the things we found is that most of the agents that are making a lot of money in real estate get up early, go to the gym and do stuff. A lot of them are getting up early and doing stuff, right, early. And then they plan out in the morning, usually, because we have more willpower oftentimes in the morning, when we're going to do stuff, calling databases, calling sources, following up on leads, afternoon, previewing property, going on appointments, that sort of thing. Right? There's a whole bunch of these, but what you ought to think about is coming up with a plan. I already did that one. For what your best day would look like. I'm not going to get to do this. I'll do it from this. So, if you have a plan and you know what you're going to do, there's a lot less drama. There's a phrase, what you think about expands. The more we concentrate and focus on getting business, on developing business, on real estate, the more likely we are to get it. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. I've had coaches also who would ask me, so when do you plan on doing it? And I'd say, well, next week. And they'd say, when? I'm like, when? Yeah, when next week? Maybe Thursday. Well, it looks like you're booked on Thursday. Oh, maybe Friday. When? Right? You understand, if I can't say when I'm going to do it, I'm probably not going to do it. Right, so it's not about selling real estate, it's about following a schedule. Did any of these things that I went through sound all that complicated? Right? You make a plan, one day you're going to do the target marketing around the solds, the just listed, the just solds. One day you're going to be door knocking in a farm. One day you're going to be doing for sale by owners and expired. You understand? I mean, you just block out your time. It's not about selling real estate, it's about following a schedule. It's about creating a plan based upon what you need to do to reach your goals, right? It's all about having a goal, determining what you would need to accomplish that goal, and coming up with a list of activities that you're going to do in order to get there. Right? And then it wouldn't hurt to have somebody to check in with, coaching, mentoring, or something that could say, hey, how did it go? How'd you do? Well, I didn't really get to meet as many people as I thought. I was busy. My canary was sick. I couldn't work that week. That sort of thing, right? I know for me, I'm more likely to do things if I have to tell people if I did them or not. That's it. Was that? I don't know. I don't have anything else. That's all I know about it.